Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Friday. We got a video today. It's kind of a comical video. So the sun has been like moving around weirdly. Planes have been flying overhead, so like it's been blinking. So hopefully we'll get this one fairly decent. So today's video is kind of like things you don't really know about Dutch. Now this is kind of mostly about Dutch guys because I don't really have much interaction with Dutch girls. Like I've heard them chittering back and forth at like restaurants, but I don't have conversational Dutch, so I don't really know what they're saying. Um, I don't, yeah. I would call it clucking back and forth, but I think that's currently a derogatory term in the United States. And this is from the point of view of an American. The first thing is, at their core, they're efficient. Now, this goes to their bluntness in their language also, because with many other European countries, especially when you get over towards the eastern side, but this also works for France and Germany, English is not as integrated into their society. So when they go to their second language, it's clunky and they only know, 50% vocabulary in comparison to your average American speaker. So they tend to use red for anything along that lines of the spectrum. It's not that they're colorblind like me, they just don't know the word for magenta. They may know it in their own language, and so whatever. So they may that's a fairly neutral way of explaining. You look sad. They may not know this thing for. They may not know the word downtrodden, or or they know that the word down is like the physical down, not you look down. Which is they'll say you look sad, and you're like, whoa, I'm not actually sad. I just sort of, So that could be a thing. Not the thing with the Dutch, as I've thoroughly come to realize in like the last year of living here, the Dutch have two primary languages. At least the ones that I talk to on the hurricanes. It's not that they have a primary and a first and a second language. They have like a primary and a 1B. And that 1B is English. And it's so if you got a Dutch person that's just like, oh no, I don't speak, they basically convey that they don't speak English, that they don't want to talk to you. Done the typical American cultural appropriation. When I've had American tourists ask me questions about things, I affect a Dutch accent and simplify my language a little bit so that they, one, take me, a little bit. It's just, sometimes I just want to, I'm so tired of tourists. And you can rage at me in the comments for faking being Dutch. I did on the cruise because I was tired of talking politics. Anyways, another thing is the Dutch are giant dorks. Not only are they efficient with their language and they sound blunt, but they're just being blunt. And they're not like being mean. They kind of think it's funny. There's sort of a jovial attitude about everything the Dutch do. And it sounds very odd. But when Aaron and I were on the cruise, like, to listen to the guy speaking Spanish, to listen to the guy speaking Italian or French, or even the German lady, they all sounded very serious. But when we were coming home and we finally listened to the Dutch pilot speaking to the rest of the people, and he was speaking in English, he just was happier about everything. And it's weird. And like I said, they're big dorks, because it seems like the late 80s, early 90s became a thing here, and they love it. But they don't have, and to be fair, they've integrated other things. Like, they know who Kesha is, but they also love, mid-90s, late 90s techno music. And so it's weird. And the fact that, mohawks are still a thing, even though, like, Yeah, it's not super weird to see that here. You see that in the States, people are like, oh, he's a rebel. It's because, in terms of the Netherlands, at least culturally, the Dutch versus the United States is super conservative. Oh my God. Part of that is the fact that so many people in the United States, they give a crap about what other people do. If that makes any sense. I mean, it should, but it's sort of like someone does something that really doesn't affect much of anybody's lives, but this person doesn't think, they're like, oh, I would never do that. So I'm going to tell them that I will never do that. Like, to be fair, I don't actually get told by people that they're vegan here. Like, or that they only eat organic food. In the United States, although the Dutch get the joke, that's not really a thing here. I've asked them, and there's not a lot of like pushing your ways upon other people thing, because that's much more in the States. Another thing with like big dorks is that they'll come up with like the cheesiest dad jokes, and this comes from all ages. This isn't just like the ones that are actually dad. Like when they talk about, like I heard someone say, "Oh yeah, well he's moving to Canada, the better North American country," and I was like, "Oh snap!" And then from like across the room, I hear, "Snow Mexico." Okay, you know, and they tell you jokes, and they kind of like like, and you're like, I'm sitting here like, okay, they're just big dorks. It's hard to. There's so many things I read about that happened around the world or have affected human history, and I'm like, of course, the Dutch did that. Like, he's the king of Oranje Nassau. Now you heard that right, orange. And for a long time, the red on their flag was orange. You can see in old historical paintings of the ships that they were flying an orange, white, and a blue flag. I don't know why it changed to red. I'm not a history major, and I don't really care that much at this point. And like, the guy, the president, the chairman, the old guy at our club for some hurricanes, he'll like bring around a bucket of quartered oranges at halftime. Like, he drove all the way, like they came all the way from Hilversum to Paris. And during the halftime of our game against Paris, we were eating oranges at like 8 o'clock at night. So yeah, that was fun. But it's not so much that. Here's the dorky factor of this whole orange thing. Carrots are white. The only reason that carrots are orange is because the Dutch love the color orange. So they genetically modified as a gift, as a tribute to, the House Oranje Nassau, they turned carrots orange. That's why they're orange. And if that's not like the dorkiest thing, like, oh, it's a real patriot. No, it's a dorky thing to do. And there are whole generations of people that carrots are orange because that's why they are. They come out of the ground. No. Carrots are originally very white because they're not, there's no reason for them to be orange. But they've been genetically modified to be orange because the Dutch love orange. And when you read about like the Afsluitdijk, you're just like extreme engineering or whatever that was on Discovery Channel. They make it sound so interesting and so powerful, and you're like, they were tired of the ocean. They were tired of being attacked by the North Sea and like the tides and the winter storms. So they just literally walled off the ocean. There's a bay, and if you look at the map of the Netherlands, there is like this large section in the middle that's water, and it's fresh water mostly now because like rivers dump into it. It's a bay that goes out to the ocean from rivers. But they put a wall across it. They put a dike across it, not across. Like 90 years later, all that water has pretty much been pushed out into the ocean, and that inner sea is now like fresh water. And it's just because he didn't want to deal. Like, to be fair, they were also able to still some of the water and then pump it out for polders and make Flavoland. And because they didn't have enough country, because you've got Germany to the east, you've got the North Sea to pretty much every other direction, and like Belgium to the south. So you can't really like go annex anybody. So you got this big lake in the middle now. Just drain the lake. I've done it with many other things anyways. And they're just like crazy industrious when they do something. But yeah, they're dorky and they have such a jovial attitude. And that's one of the things I learned on my cruise, is that it just, whether or not they're being serious, they sound happy. To be fair, they can sound super serious when talking about things. Like, it's not like everything they do sounds happy and fun, but it's kind of their default. And the language basically sounds that way. I don't know what it is, but hearing the Dutch, whether they're speaking Dutch or they're speaking English, just sounds far happier overall than anybody else speaking their native language or English. Unless they're trying to put on a show, like the guy on the cruise who was trying to do the morning announcements and make every language sound great, which was really funny. How to make him, like, it's not something I'm really common about, and a lot of other people will probably get into me about this one, but German is not a festive language. And how he made it sound festive, I don't know, and I don't think he was saying it very well. That's probably there's a few times where he was most likely the romantic language speaker. I'm not sure if he was Spanish or Italian, but he would say Italian first, then he'd do English, then I think he'd do French, then Spanish, then German. And sometimes he wouldn't stop it, and then the one lady who was from Belgium, actually, her name tag said Belgium, she would come in and she'd do the morning announcements in German. But anyways, that's that. Just the little hidden things that you guys may not know about the Dutch. Because everyone thinks, oh, it's just about weed and freedom and love. No. They're a really jovial, dorky, blunt people.